Hey everyone, welcome to Data Millennials. I am Atul and in this video we are going to discuss about the calculative fields. Then we'll be discussing how we can create calculative fields in data source, and we'll also see an example of chart specific or table specific calculative fields. So calculative fields let you create new metric or a new dimension derived from your data. It lets you extend and transform the information flowing from your data source and see the result in your report. So now you might be thinking that how does this calculative fields work? So a calculative field is a formula that performs some action on one or more than one field in your data source. Calculative fields can perform arithmetic and maths operation, as well as it can manipulate text, date and geographic information. As it uses branching logic to evaluate your data and return different result, the output of a calculative field can be then displayed on every row of data in chart that included that specific field. And how this new data is displayed depends upon you or how it has been used or how you're going to use it. For example, let's say that you want to create a calculative field based on your data. So in this video we are going to use this data in which we have category, date, quantity sold, unit price and last bought price. So for example, let's say that you want to create a calculative field called total that multiplies a unit price, which is price here in our data, by a quantity sold, which is here in our data. So we can create a calculative field which reflects the total amount in sales. So in this video we are going to first create a calculative field in our data source, and then we are also going to create a calculative field in a specific chart or a table. So in order to add a calculative field in your data source, we need to add a data first. So we have our data over here, but in our looker we do not have any data, as you can see over here. So what we need to do is that first we need to add a data in this report. So to add a data, what we can do is that we can come over here in resources. Then you can either click on manage added data sources and then click on add a data source, or what you can do is that you can click over here on data and then you can come over here and click on add data. Then you can select the connector type from which you want to add data. So for me it will be Google Sheets. Then I'm going to select my file name, which is YouTube tutorial data. Then I'm going to select the sheet in which my data is present over there. So it's in GDS 67, and then I'll click on add. So as you can see that my data is added over here, and I have these 6 fields over here. Out of these 6 fields, this record count has been added by Looker automatically. But if you will see over here, you have these 5 fields. Right now what I need to do is that I need to create a calculative field in my data source. So the calculative field is available in any report that uses that specific data source. So if you add a calculative field in your data source, then any of the new report which you will be copying from this report, or you will be using this data source for new report, then this calculative field will be available for that. You can use this data source calculative field in charts, controls and other calculative fields just like a regular field. And you can also filter on a data source calculative field just like a regular field. So in order to add a calculative field, what you need to do is that you need to come over here and click on add a field. Once you click on it, then Looker will allow you to add a new calculative field. So this calculative field can be either a categorical field as well as the numerical field. So the first thing that Looker will ask you is the field name, that what should be the name of that field. So for example, let's say that we want to create a new field based on our category name. So here we have category name, and we can see that we have 5 different categories over here, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new field which says item name, and if, or let's say it says item type, and if the category is in 1, 2, 3, then we are going to put item type 1, and then if it is in item 4 or item 5, then we'll put item 2. So I'll say the name of this field is item type, and then the next option that we have over here is field ID. You can change this field ID, or by default Looker will give it the name, so you can rename it. And then we have to give a formula. Okay, so this is the place where you basically create calculative field by using multiple functions present in Looker. So I'm going to use over here the case statement. Okay, so what I need to do is that I need to basically take this entire categories and create a case statement which says that if category is in 1, 2 and 3, then put it as item type 1. If category is in 4 or 5, then put it as item 2. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this category 1 over here, and I'm going to put it something like this, that case, and then when this category column is in category 1, then category 2, or in category 3, then put the value as item type 1. Then we are going to copy this entire line and we are going to put it another statement says that when category is in 3 or category 4, and we'll remove this category 3 from here, and then we're going to put the item type as item type 2. So what I've done over here is that I have specifically given that if category is in 1, 2, 3, then put the type as 1, but if category is in 4 and 5, okay, I have done a mistake over here, it says that 4 and 5, then put the item type as 2. But what if there is a condition that category doesn't comes under these 1 to 5? Then what should I do? Then I'll simply say that put something like this, that unknown category. So I'll give a else statement, says that else put the value as unknown, and then I'm going to end this case statement. So once I give this end, you will see that over here formula syntax is valid, and if I remove this end for an instance, you will see that Looker will show you that okay, there is some kind of syntax error and it's expected end of the formula. Or if there is any kind of error in your formula format or in your formula calculation, it will show you syntax error or some kind of error which will help you to understand that your formula is not going to work or your calculative field have some kind of issue and you need to correct it. So once you have written over your calculative field formulas, then what you can do is that you can click on save, and you will see that this calculative field has saved. Now if I click on finish, then you will see that in my data section I have a new categorical column which says item type. Now if I add a chart or a table over here, for example, let's add a table, and I have category and record count. Instead of record count, let's take quantity sold and unit price. Now in order to see that whether the calculative field which I have created is working or it is reflecting the correct value that we have intended, then what we can do is that we can take this item count and add it over here in our dimension. Now you will see that as per our condition, we had said that if category is in 1, put it as item 1. If category is in 2, put it as item 1. If category is in 3, put it as item 1. Then if category is in 4, put it as item 2. If category is in 5, then put it as item 2. If there is anything which doesn't pretends to be in category 1 to 5, then put it as unknown. But if our data doesn't have that and our condition is not getting fulfilled, then our else output or the else section is not getting executed from our calculative field. So let's see that whether the else part can also be executed, or the else part is getting executed correctly or not. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add one more row over here in my data. Okay, so I'm just going to put anything over here. I'm just going to copy this thing and put it over here. So now I have a category, this ASDSDS, and it doesn't falls in this pattern where we have category 1 to 5. Now ideally what should happen is that I should get a new category over here, which is ASDSDS, and then it will show under item type as unknown and then the quantity sold and unit price. So let's refresh the data, and you can see over here that we have a new category ASDSDS, then item type is unknown, we have the quantity sold, we have the unit price. So this is how basically you can create the branching logic in calculative field using the case statement to create a categorical variable. Similarly, you can also create a numerical variable over here. But before we go ahead and create a numerical variable or calculative field in our chart, let's understand the limitations of this data source calculative field. So we have added a calculative field over here in our data source, and one of the biggest advantage is that we can use this calculative field in our new report by using this data source. But there are certain limitations also. The first limitations of this data source calculation field, that you cannot use a data source calculative field with the blended data. So we know that we can blend data or join multiple data sources, right? But when you're joining multiple data sources, you cannot use a data source which has calculative field with the blended data. Now the second limitation with this calculative field is that you must have edit right to the data source itself to create or edit calculative field over there. So if you do not have edit right in Looker report, you won't be able to add or create a calculative field. Now as you have seen that how we can create a calculative field in our data source, let's go one step ahead and see how we can create a calculative field in table or charts. Okay, so suppose I have this table, but what I want to do is that I want to create a calculative field which can show me the total amount of sale. As you can see over here in our data source, what we have over here is that we have quantity sold and unit price. Then we have this last bought price. So for example, last time when it was bought by the customer, it was of 91.0833, and currently when the customer is buying this item, then they are buying this item at 30.055 for each and every unit. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we are going to multiply this quantity sold with this unit price to get the exact amount of sales for this category 4 or all of these category for that specific date. Okay, so to do that, what we need to do over here is that we need to change our dimensions and matrices over here. Okay, so let me remove these things, and the first dimension that I'm going to select is date. So I want each and every date. Then I need the category, or let's keep category only. Against this each category, what I need is that I want the total number of quantity sold. Okay, then I need the unit price. Okay, we need date because for each and every date we have different prices. So if we multiply this unit price with quantity sold, it won't give us correct data. So let's keep the date also over here. So against each date, against each category, currently we are seeing the total quantity sold and the unit price. Now we need the sales amount for that day. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to create a chart specific calculative field. So we can add this calculative field directly to any of the chart in our report, and these chart specific fields are also known as chart level calculative field, where you can do any kind of math or use any kind of functions and return result based on your function, just like the way you have done in your data source calculative field. So when you use calculative field in tables, the calculative field shows the result of the operations that you have done. So for example, when we will use the calculative field over here in this table, then the calculative field total sales will show us the product of the each row over here. Okay, so now let's go and create the calculative field. So what I can do is that I can click over here on add a metric, and then I have to go down and click on this create field. Once I click on it, then Looker will allow me to add a name of the field or the new field. So I'll say total sales, and then I have to give the formula over here. Okay, now in order to give the formula, you have to make sure that your data which is flowing into your calculative field is getting grouped against all of the rows. So for example, over here I'm simply going to put sum of quantity. So what this sum of quantity is doing is that it's getting total amount of quantity sold on each day at a category level, and then multiply it with the sum of unit price. So on every single day at every category, group the quantity sold and then group the unit price and multiply it to get the total sales amount. Let me put amount over here also. Now once you create a calculative field within a chart or a table, after giving name as well as formula, you have multiple options over here which says type, whether you want to put it as a numeric value or as a currency value. So let's select numeric only. Then we have the comparison calculation. If you want to put any kind of comparison calculation, you can do it from here. Then we have this running calculation. So if you want running sum, running minimum, maximum, count, average or delta, then you can do it from here. So for now, in this example, what we are going to do is that we are going to use the simple calculative field function, which gives us the total sales amount based on the category as well as the date. So if I click over here to apply, then you will see that in this table we have a new column which says total sales amount, and it is the multiplication of the quantity sold as well as the unit price. So you can see over here that we have this field. So let me increase the size of this field. So we have total sales amount. Now if you multiply both of these columns, then you will see that you have this value. Okay, now when you think about these two processes, saying that adding a calculative field in your data source as well as adding field or a new calculative field in your chart, you might think which one is better, right? So this chart specific calculative field offers some advantage over this data source calculative field, as you can quickly and easily add fields without needing access to the data source. You can create chart specific calculative field based on the blended data, and you can include data source calculative field in the chart specific calculated field. So for example, if I have added this item type as my calculative field in my data source, then I can use it into my table to create new calculated field. So we have talked about this chart specific calculated field right now, and we see some of the advantages that I have told you earlier, those three advantages, right? Now if we talk about the limits of this chart specific calculated field, then this chart specific calculated fields only exist in the chart in which you create them. So this field total sales amount only exists for this specific table. It does not exist for any other chart widget. It does not exist for this data source, as it has been calculated or it has been created on the layer of this table, and you cannot reference other chart specific calculated field in your formula. So when you create this total sales amount for this table, and if you try to reference it into your another chart widget, you can't do it. So if you need to reference other calculative fields in your multiple visualization widgets, then you have to use a data source calculative field. Now, to be able to create chart specific calculated field, you must be an editor of the report. This is one of the limitations, saying that if you have edit access to the report, then only you will be able to create this chart specific calculated field. And the field editing in report must be enabled in the data source. So these are some of the limitations of this chart specific calculated field. Now, as you have seen the example of calculation fields and have somewhat idea about it, then you can also feel that what all you can do with this calculative field, right? So this calculative field lets you do for different kind of things, such as that basic mathematics with the numerical field. You can do simple arithmetic calculations using the normal operations such as addition, subtraction, division, or multiplication. You can also construct a calculative field using any of the operators which I have told you, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, with the combination of the static numeric fields in your data source. And you can use unaggregated numeric fields from your data source to create this calculative field. You just have to use parentheses to force the calculation order, but you can use any number of unaggregated numerical field and the static numerical field to create a calculative fields. Now with this calculative field option, you can manipulate your data with functions. So looker functions allows you to aggregate your data in different ways, and it helps you to apply mathematical and statistical operations, which can also lead you to manipulate text and work with data which consist of date as well as a geographic information. So this is how basically you can create calculated fields within a specific chart as well as within the data source. Happy learning and see you in the next video.